Greetings, Unhidden Voices family, and welcome to episode 15. This episode is going to begin with me just acknowledging the collective sorrow that we have and the despair that we have that Breonna Taylor's murderers were not, no charges were brought against them for her murder. In fact, her white neighbors' charges were brought because against a police officer who shot into their home when no damage, that none of them lost their lives, but Breonna lost her life, and no murder charges for the police officers. And here we sit with this heavy heart and recognition that our lives in this country are of no consequence, not to us, like obviously we recognize our value, but how do you rationalize this idea that a woman could be asleep in her bed and murdered, and then the officers who kill her while she's sleeping get off for self-defense? That makes absolutely no sense. Only in a racist, anti-black hating country does it make sense, but other than that, it makes no sense. So as a result of this and needing to do something, there's a couple of things that we've done. One is that we've started a newsletter. We launched it. It is called Ain't I a Woman, in honor of Sojourner Truth, who asked that question in 1851, acknowledging that black women are not considered women and we are not considered of value. And to that point, we also acknowledge our brown sisters who were in Georgia, who were detained in Georgia, who were forced to have hysterectomies, and also our incarcerated women who it is still legal to forcibly remove their uteruses in this country. And as you may be aware, our incarcerated brothers and sisters are considered slaves in this country because of the 13th Amendment. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And because we have so much work to do, I thought it was important to begin this session. And I know that initially I said that we were going to just dedicate the next couple episodes to the Crowdies. But we're going to take a pause and just reflect and I'm calling it a master class because it's really an opportunity I learned a lot. You will learn a lot from my brother. My brother's name is Sundiata Rashid. He is my younger brother. He's almost 2 years younger than me, not quite. He's bigger than me, so I call him my big little bro or my little big bro, depending on depending on the day. His memory is phenomenal. Our father married a white woman, and we had two stepbrothers that were white, Henry and Adam. And so we talk about Adam because he actually died in police custody. And so you'll learn a lot. My brother Sundiata talks about what it means to be African American, what it means to be Muslim, what it means to be black in this country and in all countries, and our collective struggle and our collective journey. So please subscribe to our newsletter. You can go to unhiddenvoices.org to subscribe. Please also, if you like this episode, subscribe to our podcast. We appreciate all of your support, and we will continue to do the work. So listen, learn, and amplify with us. Bismillah. All right, alhamdulillah. So I'm really excited because I get a chance to talk to my brother, my big little bro, or little big bro, actually. He's younger than me, but he's also bigger. And so let's start with you telling us about yourself.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalat wassalam ala Rasulullah. My name is Sundiata Rashid. and grew up in I guess the Herbert Harker residence with three sisters and my mom Brenda. For the most part, I mean there was other people at different time, but that was the baseline. Actually, it was two sisters for
Yes,
most of my childhood. Yeah.
like half, 90. Yeah, because you were
Most of my
16,
childhood, I was like, by the time Ron was born, I,
16. I was 17.
I was 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You fake the funk like you're 2 years younger than me, but you're really not.
Now it's like a year and 9 months.
Okay. Yes. Well, and you didn't even mention dad.
And he didn't live with us in the house in Berkeley. And we
Yeah,
were
but you lived with him.
that was after I moved. So when I went to go move with dad, I never moved back with mom again. So that was like a whole nother that
Life.
was, yeah, that was another phase.
Yes.
And Muhammad, stop playing on the thing. Go in the other room, please,
Hey,
bro.
Muhammad. Hi, sweetheart. Love you. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, they gonna edit you out, bro. Don't even
No,
worry
I'm
about
not.
that.
No, I'm not. That's my nephew. You get off the street cred. So what do you do now?
So now I work for a nonprofit organization called Abode, and I manage a housing program for formerly homeless adults. And I'm in a PhD program at GTU, Graduate Theological University, or Graduate Theological Union, and the area of studies is historical and cultural studies of religion. And then I'm also the Amir at the Lighthouse Mosque.
And how long? So what is you're studying religion, but you're specifically what's your focus?
Um, so it's a moving target. This is my second year, but I started out wanting to focus just on like the link between African Americans and the West African anti-slavery struggle that happened around 1776 in a place called Futatoro. And then as I started studying and more things started coming up, I decided to concentrate my focus on the this year. I'm gonna be researching, and it's all gonna add into my dissertation, but this year, so last year I definitely did a lot of research on the anti-slavery movement in West Africa, which I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. A lot of people don't even know that exists,
Yeah.
and how West African Islamic scholars did a push against against slavery in Africa, and tried to fight against it, and started a civil war kind of amongst the Africans in Africa, and how a lot of the slaves that ended up in America were people who actually were struggling against slavery on the African continent. And part of when they lost battles, they would be shipped to South Carolina. But in that, when the shutdown happened, I had this book on my shelf that I had for a while called Muslims in America: A Forgotten Legacy. And so I actually read it because we was
That's a start.
in place, and I needed a break from whatever. I wrote this 40-page paper on slavery, and
Yeah.
that stuff could kind of be daunting. It's a daunting task, even though a lot of the stuff that I wrote about, is definitely dear to my heart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Just the
right.
history of Africans and Muslims in America and
Yeah.
African Americans, and kind of like joining the two and trying to show some of the similarities between how Islam was practiced in Africa by Africans, and how, like what Dr. Rudolph Ware says, that there was a clerisy amongst the amongst Africans, where they had these African religious men, and showing how that's the legacy of that is what in the souls of black folks, W.E.B. Du Bois, he wrote about the African American, the black church and the black preacher, and how the black preacher's he's bigger than just a man in the cloth. He's like the black preacher. Go to him with all of our problems, but he met W.E.B. Du Bois didn't know nothing about Islam in West Africa, so he wasn't able to connect those practices and how that really reflect how the scholars of West Africa are looked to when they start these movements in West Africa. So I was studying that, and now I'm more studying just about biracialness and how the terms that we use, like mulatto, how now it means that you're a mixed race person, as in you have one parent that's one race and another parent that's another race, usually black and white, or black and native, or white and native. That's how it's understood now. But originally, when the United States was forming, mulatto was based on a person's phenotypical skin complexion. That's how they was classified as being mulatto. So it was like you are mixed race, and your mama and your daddy was mixed race, and they mama and they daddy was mixed race because you guys were light-skinned black folks.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking at the census, even tracking the census of our family, that it listed them as mulatto, like our great grandparents, our grandmother.
This is totally the reason why black people feel like they have these white, like even when you read the autobiography of Malcolm X's mother was very fair complected. And so the story that Malcolm X knew was that her grandmother was raped by the slave master, right?
Yeah. Oh, can I just say one thing to that? Sister Babala said that your grandparents were raped by somebody. That's not fair. So let's not call them fair complected. We should just say like.
No, but what I'm saying is it's a myth. It's a myth because people came to this country from Spain and Portugal before the Mayflower. So when the Europeans from France, when the Europeans from England got here, there were people here who were fair complected compared to like what you was thinking. They definitely wasn't white.
Yeah.
And it definitely wasn't what you was when you think of an African, they didn't fit that complexion either, right? So they started calling these people mulatto and mixed race. Know what I'm saying? And so when you look at a census, it goes back to 1910, and somebody says he's mulatto, he's not saying that his father or mother was a different race or was white. He's just saying that he's in this classification, what people call mixed race. The censuses then, like the censuses now, they're done by local community people, right? Yeah. So the local community people put on the census what's understood in that locality. So you got people from places where they had these mixed races, these fairer skinned people, over time, more and more of them was able to pass and just meld into whiteness. But the original ones, they were all seen as what they call mixed race, right?
Yeah.
So where does Islam play the part in that? Because these people came from Spain and Portugal. When Spain and Portugal had the Inquisitions and they started to expel the Muslims or the people who descended from Muslims, they sent a lot of them to the New World, and they ended up here. And they class, like if you look at the literature or the records, they classified themselves as Portuguese up until the 19th century. Now, when you go to Portugal now, you don't see people who look like us, right? So, but why was these people who are light skinned, red bones, why was they calling themselves Portuguese? Because their ancestors was sent to the Americas from Portugal and from Spain with the conquerors. And when they got here, they set up communities. So that history, a direct tie to a Islamic civilization, is something that I'm trying to talk about now. And how does it play out even when you look at some of the bearers of intellectual thought? You definitely had dark-skinned African Americans, but you also had these light-skinned, what we would consider like Ofays or
So it's in that terminology.
right,
And a red bones and Ofays. That is so
so the records show that these people that called themselves Portuguese,
they didn't call themselves Ofays.
they called themselves red bones, and other people called them red bones. Know what I'm saying?
Right,
And
but that also now has a pejorative
it don't make a difference. You got to use the terms it was used. And this is the most important, one of the most important facts. So these people became known as Melungeons in a lot of the different areas in the United States. And if you look up Melungeon, it's going to say mixed race, native, white, and African, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at the histories of the census, Melungeon people, when you track their family names going back up to the different counties where they was found in Tennessee and in Virginia and in the Carolinas and in Kentucky and Louisiana. On the census, they said they was mulatto, or they said they was black, or they said they was white. That's what they put. In the 1800s, because there was different tax laws levied, lighter taxes on Native Americans in places like Tennessee and Virginia. For the first time, people who was Melungeons or mixed race, mulattoes, they started classifying themselves as Cherokee Indian. Now, this is anecdotal evidence. I've never done a study, but I guarantee that every black person who says they have an Indian or Native American ancestor, they ain't gonna say the person is Ohlone. They ain't gonna say the person is, they might say Seminole.
I've heard Navajo.
Huh?
I've heard people say Navajo. I've heard people say Cherokee.
Everybody say Cherokee. That's like 90%.
90% of the people you know.
So no, I'm saying a few people that say that they Navajo, they might actually be Navajo. Anybody who says that they're Cherokee, these Cherokees wasn't actually Indians. They was mixed race blacks and whites. That's why they had plantations. Mm-hmm. And that's why they owned slaves, some of them, because they were doing it for tax purposes. Know what I'm saying? And so
naming themselves as Native Americans so that their taxes would be lowered.
They were saying that they was not, they're saying they was Native Americans, saying that they were Cherokee Indians. Okay. There was no term Native Americans in those days. Know what I'm saying? Or indigenous. So they didn't know a lot. Like most people don't know a lot about the vast tribes and history of the Native Americans. We know the generic big ones. We know the Sioux. We know the Cherokee. We know the Navajo. Black people ain't gonna be like, oh, I'm part Mesquite, blah, blah, blah. Know what I'm saying? It's always these big tribes, but one of those tribes, a lot of those people were making that claim, but before that in history, they were known as being mulattoes.
Okay, so I want to take us back into your personal history, because I think, or one of the things that I think is really very interesting about you is how great your memory is. And you're one of the people who, actually, you are the person to me that I know that has the best memory of anybody I've ever met. And a lot of what we, like I noticed that you did an interview very recently with Mom about like when we were kids, and Nina Simone came and stayed with us. And so and that's another reason why I said I want you, because you also lived with Dad and you have a specific, you have knowledge about our parents based on, you know, your actual memory of like the events that happened, that I'd like you to talk a little bit about them and your experience just growing up. And then also, like, I know maybe it was a couple months ago, you and I were talking about Adam. And I don't think most people know that we had a brother named Adam. So I want to just, you know, also acknowledge him too, because, you know, he was a part of our lives. So that being said, so that's the question. Talk to us about, you know, your childhood a little bit growing up and, you know, some specific.
I mean, so you know, Dad, he moved around quite a bit, but in the beginning, he lived in Las Vegas. So we would spend the school year in the San Francisco at that time, and then you know he would come pick us up, and so I remember a lot of long hot summers in Las Vegas. Know what I'm saying? And then even when we moved to Berkeley, he still would come pick us up. And then in the like maybe the early '80s, maybe '82 or '83 or something like that, '84 at the latest, he ended up moving to Southern California because that's where he had a lot of family roots. So like our mother's family is mostly Jersey folks, right? And so a branch of them go back to Virginia, but like the vast majority of our connection with them was all in Jersey, right? And then our father's folks, they came from Big Spring, Texas, and they all moved to Los Angeles. So we got a lot of family. So we would go back and forth. At first, we was going to Vegas, and we would have LA family members up there at the same time in the summer in Vegas.
Yeah.
At the pool, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just that type of stuff. We had some half brothers and sisters who we kind of definitely lost contact with as they were much older than us, and after they grew up, I mean I ain't seen them since they was teenagers, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and then after that, you know, was based in Berkeley, but we would spend different amounts of time in Los Angeles as kids, sometimes going to school in LA, you know what I'm saying? Seeing the different cultures between what you call a Bay is definitely very much different from LA, but everybody who what I would say is indigenous to the Bay, they got Sacramento connections and they got LA connections, right?
Do you remember when we lived in LA the first time, we lived in Long Beach with Jackie, and Jackie is our Uncle Jimmy's daughter, right? And so my dad moved in with Jackie, and she had 3 kids, and Dad had us 3. But she had her youngest son was Curtis, and you guys were you and Curtis were playing outside, and I think you were playing football, or maybe it was Cowboys and Indians, I don't know. But Dad said that he heard you say, Curtis said, you could play with us, but if you gotta die, and you and you said,
some kind of bank cowboys and robbers. No, we used to play like cops and robbers.
Okay.
So, and they would be like, they shot me. I'd be like, nah, you missed. So at this point, all Dad heard was, man, if you want to play, you got to die. He didn't know the background was, I'd come around the corner and they'd be like, boost, boost, boost. I'd be like, you missed. So he thought they was taking advantage of me saying I got to die in the game, but it was actually, Dad is the master of a half story. He would always get half of some information and swear he had the full picture. And I'd be like, nah, Dad, that was not. You know what I'm saying? But
that was great.
That house was actually on Beachley, in I think that's North Long Beach.
But you actually sent me a picture one day.
I looked it up.
You looked it up and you had the exact address. And that's one of the things that blows my mind about you. Because how do you remember the address?
I didn't remember that. I just knew the street. So
I was in 3rd grade.
Google map. And just when I seen the actual house that it was, I remember the house because it had the front of the house, and then you come to the side, and there was a garage, and then the door, the front door was actually at the side of the house.
Yeah.
So it was only one house on that block that was shaped like that. I said, okay, this is the house. And that's
Oh
how
my God. And you remember, well, one of the things that I was thinking about was when the fight, because remember she had, I guess I don't know how she got cable or HBO, but Jackie had these two screens, and it was like Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting. Who was he fighting? Roberto Duran.
And yeah.
And she had people paid, I was like $5 or whatever to come watch the fight on her screen on these two TVs.
And we had a house, half the room was Mexicans.
Yes.
So like, unlike any other place I had ever stayed, like Long Beach was like the Bay Area is now. Like the people, like the Bay Area is so integrated. Like when we was kids, the Bay Area was segregated like the South. Like black areas, Mexican areas, Chinese areas, white areas. It wasn't all that much mixing. But when we was in Long Beach, like the whole block, we had Samoans, we had Mexicans, we had white families. But on the other side of that field was actually Compton, California. You know what I'm saying? Which would have been an all black area. You know what I'm saying? But that area we was in was like, so we had, when she had everybody come over, we had Mexicans and everything. I remember trying to tell, Dad had told us nigger didn't mean black, it meant ignorant.
Yes, I remember that.
I told Curtis that, and Curtis was like, you crazy. Black. I said, nah, man, it just means ignorant. Hey, he went and got this Mexican guy down the street, young guy named Carlos. He said, man, he trying to tell me nigger don't mean black. And he said, the Mexican guy was like, nah, it does, because negro in Spanish means black. And I was like, yeah, negro in English means black. That ain't got nothing to do with the word nigger, though. But I couldn't convince them for nothing.
Not for nothing in the
So
world.
that's how we grew up. So when we moved to Oakland, I was about maybe 15, 14 or so. And we moved down by the lake. And I started going to Oakland High School. And that was at the same time that we was DJing a lot. So, we was trying
to. You had those friends that were actually like break dancers. Like
that was when we was in
Berkeley. But
everybody was break dancing. But
and
by the time I got to
bike park to make your own bikes.
Yeah, we did that. That was so in the 4th grade, we was doing all about riding bikes. Then the 5th grade, we was all about break dancing. That lasted till maybe probably 4th and 5th was bikes. 5th and 6th and part of the 7th was breakdancing. By the time 8th grade, breakdancing was so played out, and it was just beatboxing and DJing and rapping. And I remember when I remember my partner Jerome, who he comes to the mass shit now. He's Muslim brother. We was young, and I remember telling him, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to stop doing this DJing thing. It's about to be played out. I can see it coming. I'm just gonna have to start rapping. And he was like, man, you tripping, man. He's like, if you look at all the groups, it's all about the DJ name first. It's Eric B. and Rashid. It's Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. I like, yeah, man, but ain't nobody tripping off of them, man. I need to start rapping. But at that time, I couldn't rap. You know what I'm saying? I used to be like, everybody knows.
Like you can rap now. You can't rap now.
And I ain't trying to rap now, but I'm saying back then, I was looking for a career in this music business. I was like, we doing all right with the DJing, but we need to start rapping. You know what I'm saying? And you used to have a partner named Chris.
Yes.
That
he
dude
actually is a DJ now. Yeah.
He's still, but I'm saying even back then, he was one of the ones, I saw how good he was, and I said, man, I ain't gonna do this no more. I ain't gonna be that good.
Yes. That's right, because we met in seventh grade. And he DJ'd all through high school. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was
no,
a
I
big
remember
thing.
the last time I saw him, I was out here visiting, and him and somebody else had just opened up a under 21 club. And I was somewhere. I was at that by this time I'm practicing Islam. So like when I went to stay with dad in like 88, that's when I started kind of practicing Islam. You know what I'm saying? Or that's when I started not kind of but practicing it. So
Going
this was
because we
probably
used to try and practice it, like when we would fast half the day in the summer and
that was with dad, but I'm saying like as an
on your
adult or as
own.
a teenager,
Yeah.
that was the first time I tried to start practicing. Like when all the time we was in Berkeley, might say we was Muslim, but we never did nothing Islamic. You know what I'm saying?
We
We
didn't
just,
eat pork. That was
but I'm
something.
saying that, but I'm saying like anything, like we didn't fast, we didn't pray, we just
We
was
tried to
Muslim.
pray and we tried to call their Don, remember? And we used to
That was
sing.
when we was with dad. That was in
But we
Vegas. I'm
also
talking
would
about we
keep
was
it
in,
up for like the first.
oh hey, as soon as we got back, it was like poof. So so when I came back, I can't remember. I guess I might have been. It might have been. He probably had graduated, and I was still in high school because it's probably about to be 1989. It was the summer '89, and I seen him somewhere, and he was like, you know, it was like it wasn't until I left
Mhm.
and came back that I said, man, I'm really a Oakland dude.
Mm.
Like because like growing up here, you know, we would be going different places and spending time different places, but I never really knew how much I was from the Bay
Yeah.
until I moved to Jersey, and everybody out there, to them, they called me Cali. Cause it
Mm.
was like I talked different, I dressed different. It was like they was like, this dude is from California. But even when they was doing that, it wasn't no big deal. But then when I came back, and every place I would go, I knew people. I was
Yeah.
like, because when I was in Jersey, I didn't know as many kids. No way you gonna know as many people in the years know what I'm saying, in California. So it was I was like, dang, I'm really a Californian. And
Also, you moved to Pennsylvania too, wasn't? I
yeah,
mean,
so but that was after. So when that week that after that summer weekend, when I went back to stay with dad, he had moved to Pennsylvania. So
oh,
it was at that point, but at that point, I was accepting the fact that I was from the Bay because the Bay wasn't Cali, it wasn't LA. So it's like when people think of California, they think about Los Angeles, especially in them days. It was just if you wasn't in, we kind of was in LA shadow. Don't
yeah.
nobody talked about Bay culture. If anything, stuff would come from the
Later
Bay,
stuff.
but when they would
Yeah.
get to California, when it would get to LA, even I'm saying California, when it would get to LA, it would get bigger. You know what I'm saying? Than it was when it was just small here amongst us. So, but definitely, I started to embrace the fact that I was from Oakland
Yeah.
when I came back from Jersey because I was like, every place I would go, people would be, oh man, where you been? I've been gone for a year, but for them, it seemed like I was in jail or something, prison. I was like, oh yeah, man, I was in Jersey. And then they know, oh man, how was that? What was that? You know what I'm saying? So, and then, you know, nobody know the alleyways of Mecca like a Meccan. So it's like the stuff I knew about Jersey in that time I spent there, I didn't really get to know it like I know Cali. You know what I'm saying? So that was the turning point. So then when I went back to Pennsylvania, I was like, yeah, man, I'm from Cali though. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
and so when we was in Cali, that's when Adam, we reunited. Like we knew him when we would be staying in Glendale with his mom. She was Caucasian. And then he came out to Cali. I mean to Pennsylvania. He stayed with me there for maybe
Yeah.
a year or so, and then he ended up dying in police custody. Which is
Mhm.
funny because now that's like a thing. Like, you know,
Yeah.
did he really kill himself?
Yeah.
Because or did they put their foot on his neck and he couldn't breathe? You know what I'm saying? So
Because it doesn't. So one of the things that I really appreciated was your relationship with Adam? So for everybody who doesn't know, because we didn't really, I don't know if I really framed this clearly. So our dad married a woman named Najma, and Najma had two children, Henry and Adam. And she was a white woman, and she had these two children by a previous marriage, and Adam was her youngest son. But when they met, when our parents met, when Adam and Dad and Najma met, it was in law school in LA. So Dad had moved to LA to go to law school, and we would go down there, right, and stay with him. And when we stayed with Jackie, when we were talking about Jackie, that was when he had started law school, when he was living with Jackie, right? And so Najma lived in Glendale with her son and Adam.
Henry though, Adam stayed with his dad in Riverside, and she stayed with Henry. And then when we came to stay, Henry seen us and he booked. And I met Henry one time. He told me how to use his Commodore computer, and then he booked up out of that joint. He was much older than us.
He was like a teenager, like 16.
Yeah.
You were like,
And
well,
I
was like
was in the 6th grade. I was in the 6th grade. So that was it, you know. But so Adam, he would come on the weekends and stuff. And then he had an accident playing in the backyard, and he fell on a bamboo tree, and he ended up with a bamboo piece in his back. And so when his dad ended up getting him back from, he still had that bamboo piece. He rushed him to the hospital, and he was like, I ain't letting you keep him no more. So that was our last time seeing him for a little while. And then next time I saw him, he came to visit when we was in the Bay. Him and Dad drove up.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I took him to the parks and to hang out, and because he was, you know, he white boy, so everybody was beating him up everywhere. But he was, you know, he was tough though. He, you know what I'm saying? He fight back. And so I hadn't seen him from that time until we actually went to Pennsylvania, when he came out with his girlfriend,
and she was pregnant.
Yeah.
But the thing too, I think what I was gonna say was that, and that's probably too why you remember certain things, because you really were like that was the first time not the first time, because you had Junior, but I was like, you really had a brother. You know what I mean? Because you had grown up with just sisters. It was just me and Jahida. And then Adam was like,
it was my stepbrothers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I think you kind of glommed onto that. Like, you know, y'all were close, I feel. And so
I had love for Junior too.
Yeah.
The difference, Adam was younger than me, you know what I'm saying? But so he was a skinhead. So when he came back, he was definitely a member of the Aryan Nation, and he had all these tattoos and stuff. And so we would talk about it, man, and he was like, man, you know, whenever, you know, when I used to just resent your dad and my mom's relationship. And he said, so, you know, so I remember the first time I went to one of the big meetings they had in Southern California, I was kind of ashamed that my stepdad was black. I didn't want to tell nobody, but I told one guy, and he was like, oh man, my stepdad black too. And he said, man, they start introducing me. He's like, all of them cats have black stepdads. Then they introduced me to like one of the members, one of the leaders of the skinheads in Southern California, and he had a black stepdad too. And that was so insightful to me, that like, you see all of these racist white folks, and a lot of times that tension, it's not like, it's different, but again, you could be racist against Latin Americans and be in like Utah or something, or somewhere where Latin Americans just starting to kind of move in, and you ain't had no relationship with them. But with white folks and black folks, we've been here for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So the fact that you still have, like, racism is definitely a choice. And I feel like black people and people in general, we let white people off the hook.
Yeah.
By trying to make it seem like, oh, they racist because they don't know it. Like,
yeah,
we was sleeping with your mama, and that's why you hate us, bro. It ain't y'all. That's the truth is we been here as long as y'all. So they ain't no, oh, if we get to know each other type stuff. It's like we been knowing each other. Know what I'm saying? And that's part of the problem. Like, know what I'm saying? Like that's the problem. So for Donald Trump to be like, well, it's because of the history of People's America and history. Like most people in them streets that's fighting anti-racist people out fighting, they ain't no read
critical race theory. I'm like, I wish I could get more people to be down with critical race theory.
The first people I heard attacking critical racist theory was Muslims.
Oh, okay.
They so colorblind. They you gonna make people feel bad. We just not. But now this shows how crazy you sound, because you sound just like Donald Trump. But probably Muslims won't even care. But my whole thing
No, but
is,
I know I was watching something about it was United Shades of America, and what's his name? Kamal Bell. He went to like over there in Dearborn, and he was interviewing like Muslims and whatnot. And then there was one, I think the brother was Iraqi or something, and he was talking about how he voted for Donald Trump. And I just can't even. But and like I've actually seen like
the funniest thing is that Muslims in America, the immigrant Muslims, been Republican. Like they stopped being outwardly Republican when George W. Bush started his war on terror. But the reason George W. Bush won in that close, narrow election where he even lost by 1,500 popular votes was because all of these by immigrant, I'm saying Arabs, not Daisies, but the Arab community, they the ones who was voting for him. I mean, because, Arabs, they don't understand that before Syria, okay, I got it for instance. Okay. You frozen?
So, I can see you.
You were so still. I was like,
I was paying attention. I'm interested in what you got to say.
I pulled a census document from 1910, right? Mm-hmm. And this census document was from this census document was in 1910, but the person who they was talking about, his name was Zardad Khan, and he was from Shinka, Afghanistan, right? And he immigrated to the U.S. in 1909, and he was a cook, right? So it's him and his family. He was one of the sons. His dad was the head of the household, but all of them was from Shinka, Afghanistan. All of them immigrated in 1909 to Oakland, California, of all places. Spoke English. Some of them couldn't read. Most of them could read. But the interesting thing is, what do you think is put for race?
They put white.
I don't know why everybody thinks they put white.
They put black?
They didn't put nothing. The census people put mulatto.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
There was no I'm Muslim and I'm white until the Syrian population came to the United States and sued because they didn't want to be classified as people of color. They wanted to be classified as white. And so that opened up, when they won that suit, all of the Arabs started putting that they was white. Prior to that, they had to put mulatto, people of color. And so what I'm saying is, in our minds, when we think of mulatto and what it meant to be mulatto in America is two totally different things.
Got it.
Because when we think of mulatto, we think this has something to do with your parents. Yeah. And not being of the same race.
Right.
In American history, the word mulatto or person of color was talking about the descendants of the Moors. And the
Mm.
Moors was Muslim. So
Yeah.
it only makes sense that every other Arab population to come over here, even Afghans is more white than Arabs. They were seen as being mulatto though. This was in 1910, the census. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the Arabs, they because they trying to be white, instead they could be like, wait a minute. People say more the Moors is from Africa,
Yeah.
but the Moors is European. Like if they is just as European as us, because they was in Spain for 700-800 years before the Inquisition started, right? So when they came to America, they called themselves Portuguese because their parents grew. They ain't know nothing about Africa. They ain't know nothing about no places in Africa, right?
Yeah.
But by the same token, they had two languages: Morabic, which became Spanish. You know what I'm saying? But at that time, it was like a Arabic Latin mix, but the scholarly language they had was Arabic, right? So a lot of times people say the Arabs of Spain, you know what I'm saying? The Arabs of the Iberian Peninsula, even though these people wasn't from Mecca, Medina, or nothing like that, you know what I'm saying? They was Africans who came up. I'm saying that to say, if the Muslims in America was intelligent, they would say, well, let's claim these Moors,
Yeah.
these biracial people,
Right.
because that means we're indigenous.
Yeah.
Because in the definition of indigenous means you was in America at its founding
Right.
in 1776. So the only people who was here was Native Americans, Negroes, whites, and free people of color. Those are the only people, and free people of color meant biracial, mulatto, you know what I'm saying? You know, anybody who wasn't a slave, you know what I'm saying? But you wasn't white either. So my thing is like, wouldn't it make more sense instead of you trying to say, well, I'm an immigrant who came over here in the 60s and I want all these rights, to say, man, my people was here when the place was founded. But in order to do that, instead of aligning yourself with whites, you have to align yourself with blacks, because black people are like all of the free people of color that wasn't light enough to blend out and be considered white now, they're black now. It
Yeah.
don't matter how light they are.
That's
You
right.
be Steph Curry, know what I'm saying? You could be Steph Curry's wife, know what I'm saying? You're gonna be considered black. And even if you could be Mariah Carey, know what I'm saying? You could be, all of those people are black, know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about this kind of like disassociation and it's based on racism. But can you talk about your own experience? Like, can you share with us experience that you've actually had of racism, where you've experienced racism and what that was like?
So I was just telling my daughters this. So when I got to Pennsylvania, Easton, Pennsylvania, and I was a senior in high school, because I had went to high school in California and Jersey. When I got to Pennsylvania, there was things that you had to take that they consider high school requirements that I didn't have to take before. So I would be the oldest, I'd be a senior, and everybody else in the class, it was only like swimming and computer and health. It was like a health class, a computer programming class, and a swim class that I had to do before I could become eligible to graduate. So when I was in the computer class, there was this young white girl. She was like, you know, because I was a senior, she was in the 9th grade, so she looked like a teeny bopper. But I remember her telling me, she was in the 10th grade. I remember her telling me, "Oh, you don't have your license?" I was like, "No." She was like, you know, I started driving, you know, dope fiend rentals in California. You know what I'm saying? Give a dope fiend some money, he just give you a car, rent a car to you, you just be rolling, you know what I'm saying? But so she was, I was like, nah, I never, you know, I had been pulled over multiple times in California by the police. They would make me park the car, just stuff like that. I was so much more gang goofy than everybody who I was hanging with. You know what I'm saying? Like all of my friends was way more street wise than I ever could be. You know what I'm saying? But this white girl, her name was something like Anna something. You know what I'm saying? But she was like, I can't even remember. But she was like fascinated. This, 6 foot something brother from California. They ain't never met nothing like that, right? So she was like, she's trying to walk me through this thing. She's like, man, the test is so easy. You should just go down and take it. It's on the computer. They ask you like 5 questions. So I was like, man, that's what's up. So I started driving one of the cars we had at the house. And I'm just rolling it to school every day. I might have already been driving it, and she might have saw me driving it. And I used to park like there was a mall or something close to Easton High School. And I would park there and walk. And she was like, you could just park on the campus. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing to you. So I started doing that, right? So I go take the test, thinking it's gonna be 5 questions. That test was hella hard. It was like they just kept asking me question after question after question after question until finally I was like, I failed. No, I felt like they kept asking me questions. And then when I got to the part where I failed, they was like, you failed, come back. So then I got the book. So now I get the book, I'm reading it, studying it. I go up in there and they, again, question after question after question. I remember Ola Bell, who was like dad's friend from years, my whole life. Before I was born, they knew each other. Dad was kind of getting on me like, man, you fell in this test. And Ola was like, man, something going on, man. Cause they keep asking questions because Ola took me up there to take the test. He was like, the test.
Ola taught me how to drive too.
Ola was like, I seen other people come in, take their test and leave, and he's still on his computer. Know what I'm saying? Till he failed. Right? So now, boom, I graduate high school. So when I was in high school, when I was a senior, that I hadn't really planned on going to college. Like when I was in Cali, I was kind of into the DJing thing. Know what I'm saying? So I was thinking, you know what I'm saying? I ain't got no college plans. But when I moved out of California, my grades started going up, right? I started getting all A's and stuff. Like I used to get A's, but when I hit Berkeley High, I started flunking everything. And then when I went to Oakland High, it was like about a C, B, C's and B's. But when I got to the East Coast, I'm practicing Islam. I don't know that many people. So now I'm like actually doing homework, hanging out and stuff. So, you know what I'm saying? So and then right by the end of the year when I started, now I know a lot of people in Jersey, but then I moved to Pennsylvania. So it's the same thing. But I ended up, when I was a senior, my college advisor, this lady, she was like, man, you need to just apply. And this was before the internet. So I had to write to the colleges. They send me an application. I fill out the application, put in a check, and then send it off. I didn't know, I had took their SATs and did really, really well. And that's why she was like, I can guarantee with your grades and your SATs, somebody gonna accept you. You gotta decide where you want to go. So I went to the little college area in the library, got the little address, and I was like, NYU, Duke, Oklahoma, North Carolina. It was all schools with sports. Syracuse, the only St. John's. So I sent off all these applications. There was one black school, Morgan State, that I had stayed a summer in DC, and they used to have a brother named Dr. McDabe on the DC WBAI or whatever their little black radio station was. And so I was like, oh, he a professor at Morgan State. So I sent off to that one. So Morgan State sends me the application before any of the other schools. So I fill out the application. It took heck of long, all these questions, asked me all kind of, college application. And then I put in my check and I sent it all. They sent me an acceptance before
Wow.
I got any of the other applications. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to Morgan State. So now all these other applications is coming. I don't even fill none of them out. I'm already accepted. People ask me, what you gonna do next year? Oh man, I'm going to this school in Baltimore, Morgan State, right? So then now I'm driving, don't have a license, but we rode. You came out, we was rolling to like
Yes.
Philly. We driving to New York. We rolling. I ain't even
Yes.
the license. So then when there was a girl named Veronica Dugan, and she needed me. She was black. She needed me to take her to Moravian. And so right before I went, Najma was like,
Wait, what's Moravian?
it's a college. So she had gotten into this college called Moravian, but she had gotten in there she was like, take me up there because I got to meet with this admissions officer. He was probably in charge of minority recruiting or something, young white guy. Right before I left, Najma was like, she gave me my college stuff, transcripts, because I had copies of it because I was supposed to be doing these applications. She said, take them these or take these with you. So I just took it. I'm like, whatever, I'll take it. Najma was cool sometimes. Most of the time she was cool. She just didn't like she didn't like you and Jahida.
She liked us until we became teenagers.
But
She
so anyway, so when
we
we went to we get up there, he's talking to Veronica and he's telling her, you know, you got accepted, but we need you to take these remedial classes so that you could eventually take the regular college courses. So we want you to start at night. And it was a little school in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, right? Mm-hmm. So he's talking to her, and then when he finishes, I'm in the room, not just sitting in there because I'm her ride. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They talked. He didn't. I don't even know if we went to the office. I think he came out of the office and just talked to her at the desk and told her what the plan was. And this was the Thursday or something, or the Monday of the week before Labor Day. And after Labor Day, I was supposed to start at Morgan State. And so he said, what's your name, man? What grade you in? And I told him, that's why I figured now he must have been in charge of minority recruiting. He said, man, by any chance you got your transcripts on you? So by chance, I just happen to have my transcripts. I see, this is how white people work. They like, with your stuff, and it's the done data. So he looked at it, and he was like, man, I think we got a place for you here, man. What's your plans? I was like, well, I'm supposed to be going to Morgan State. He was like, yeah, I know that school. It's in Baltimore, but if you want, you could come here. If that was a Friday or Thursday or Friday, that Tuesday after Labor Day, I was going. They had my dorm, my meal card, everything. I just showed up, moved in, and started classes to register for class. It was like, boom, not paying no money or nothing. It was like everything was cool. It was like me and two other black dudes and two black girls went there full time out of 5,000 kids there or something or whatever. And then Veronica went there at night. And then it was like a Puerto Rican brother there named Bert, Umberto. And like, that was the whole minority.
Wait, so where's the racism part?
Oh, so now I'm going to Morgan State. I mean, I'm going to Moravian. I'm driving home on the weekends, every weekend. Bringing my homeboy John up there. One of the weekends, I get pulled over. Know what I'm saying? So what had happened was over the summer, I'm getting on the on-ramp, and it's a big truck in front of me. He throw it in reverse because he think he getting on the wrong plate. All he had to do was go over the on-ramp, and he could have turned off there, but he thought this was making him go on the freeway when it wasn't. He throw it in reverse, but he can't see me because I'm behind him, and he smashes into my front.
Oh God.
my radiator front, my radiator gone, one of my headlights is gone. This cracker tell the people that we ran into him. And so when we called the place, they all back his story. The state troopers there, oh yeah, they said we never said that it was a disputed thing. But I had a witness with me. He was by himself because I had a passenger, a brother named Allen. So that was jacked up. So I end up Abdul Khalik end up putting me a new radiator up in that joint. So I got a radiator.
Who Abdul Khalik is.
Now I ain't gonna do all that. He just in this one part of the story. So we get to him later. So he put the radiator in, but my headlight's still out. So one night I'm driving back to Easton from school. Cop pulled me over for a busted headlight. Give me a ticket, tell me, call somebody to come pick up the car, right? Because I ain't got no driver's license, right? So, boom, soon as he leave, jump back in the car, drive home, don't even trip off of it no more. A month later, they send the police to my house to pick me up and take me to jail for the unpaid traffic offense. Like, I had never heard of nothing like this.
Wow.
I never heard of it then, and I stopped hearing about it all the way until that stuff happened up there in Ferguson, because they were saying that the police was doing that same stuff, giving black people all these tickets, making them go to jail and pay all these fines as a way to boost the economy for the city, right? So obviously Easton, they was doing the same thing, but that ain't even the part that was jacked up. The jacked up part was the guy who came to arrest me for the little $150 ticket or whatever it was, Najma paid him for the ticket. And he was like, "Is this your son?" And she was like, "Yeah." And then the CHP dude, because when I would go take the test, it wasn't like it here is the DMV, Pennsylvania. You would go take the driver's test at the Pennsylvania Highway Patrol office, right? So he was like, he gave her the card and said, with his number on it, said, "Tell him to call me, because when black kids come take the test, they give them the hard computers." So he called me and let me know, but basically because he thought my mama was white, he's gonna let me take the test on the easy computer. And so I was like, systematic racism. Because so Abdul Khalik, back to him, one of the things he used to do was people would pay him money and he would go take they driving test for them. He was like, "Yeah, man, that thing is hard." He said, "But I memorized the whole book so they could give me 50 questions." You know what I'm saying? But it is they just keep on asking you questions. But after a while, it's gotta, if the white kids get 5 questions, you might get 30 or 40. You know what I'm saying? But if you memorize the book, they give you 100 questions. You know what I'm saying? So he didn't know, like we didn't know that it was only hard for us.
Yes.
He thought it was just a hard test. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was giving it because the dude was like, "Man, tell him to call me. I'll tell him when to come up there. I'll be up there and make sure he take it easy." I never went back up there though. So because right after that, I went to Morgan State. And then after that, I joined the military. But yeah, man, systematic racism. But it's people don't even know, like that. The white girl who told me how easy the test is, she got no idea that of the privilege that she had.